Will I ever be able to write something great? I hope so. Oh, so very much. Because writing allows me to record everything, all my thoughts, ideals and fantasies.
Annalisa Mary, or Anne Frank, was born to a Jewish family on 12th June 1929. She was gifted the diary for her 13th birthday, that is on 12th June 1942, and she started writing the events of her life ever since. During the Second World War, her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. As persecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms in her father Otto Frank's office building. Hence, most of her events were written during the 2 years of her hiding. Her final entry in the diary was the 1st of August 1944. 3 days later, the annex was discovered by the Gestapo. Gestapo meaning the political police of the Nazi Germany, the secret state police. Hence, after being discovered by the Gestapos, which was acting on a tip from the Dutch informers, the Frank family was deported to Westerbork, a transit camp in the Netherlands, and from there to Auschwitz. Anne and her sister Margaret were transferred to Bergen-Belsen the following month. Anne's mother died in early January, just before the evacuation of Auschwitz on Jan 18, 1945. It was established by the Dutch government that both Anne and Margaret died in a typhus epidemic in March 1945, only weeks after the liberation of Bergen-Belsen. But scholars in 2015 revealed new research, including analysis of archival data and first-person accounts, indicating that the sisters might have perished in February 1945. Otto Frank was found hospitalized at Auschwitz when it was liberated by Soviet troops on Jan 27, 1945. Anna's father, the only survivor of the group, returned to Amsterdam after the war ended to find that a diary had been saved. Convinced that it was a unique record, he took action to have it published in the English under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. It was eventually translated from its original Dutch into many languages and became one of the world's most widely read books. There have also been several films, televisions, and theatrical productions, and even an opera based on the diary. Described as the work of a mature and insightful mind, the diary provides an intimate examination of daily life under Nazi occupation. Anne Frank has become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims. Now girls, let me explain the text for you. So here in the beginning of the story, we get to see Anna talking to herself and finding it strange to write a diary since she's never written one before. She feels that no one will be interested to read about the feelings of a 13-year-old. But yet, she feels like writing because it makes her feel good to share her thoughts with someone. Since she does not have a very close friend, she feels that she needs a diary so that she can share her feelings. It's not like as if she does not have family and friends to love her. She does have them by her side. But then, whenever they meet, they only have regular talks. So she wanted somebody to connect to her. And that's how she decides to write a diary, and she names her diary Kitty. So now Anne feels that if she were to plunge right into the details of her day-to-day events in her diary, The Kitty, then no one would be able to understand a word of her stories. So, although she does not like doing it, she decides to provide a brief sketch of her life. And this she does by introducing us to her parents, the most important people of her life. She says that her father was very adorable, and her father, Mr. Otto Frank, did not marry her mother until he was 36 and she was 25 years of age. Then she talks about her sister Margaret, who was born in Frankfurt in Germany in the year 1926. She further states that they lived in Frankfurt until she was 4 years of age. Then after her father emigrated to Holland in 1933, and after her mother joined him, she and her sister Margaret were sent to live with their grandmother in Aachen. And then later Margaret went to Holland in December, and she followed suit in the month of February. So right after she joined them in Holland, she started her Montessori nursing school there and stayed in that school until she was 6 years of age. Unfortunately for them, her grandma fell ill in the year 1941 and had to undergo an operation, because of which Anne's birthday passed with very little celebration. And sadly for the family, the grandma died in January 1942, and here Anne states that she often thinks of her and she still remembers her, so much so that this birthday celebration in the year 1942, they had plans to light candles in her memory. So now the text takes us back to 20th June 1942, and it's a Saturday, and Anne has mentioned about her class and her teachers, especially one teacher in particular. So let us read further to understand how the days unfolded for her then. Now it is Saturday, the 20th of June 1942, and here Anne writes in a diary, The Kitty, about how her classmates are excited and nervous regarding the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers would be deciding as to who would be promoted and who would be detained. She also talks about how half the class is making bets and how some boys are staking their entire holiday savings on their bet. She feels that about a quarter of the class do not deserve to be promoted, since she feels that they are dummies. But she also knows that teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth and that anything can happen. She, however, is not worried about her girlfriends and herself because she feels they can make it. The only subject that she's not sure about is maths. But knowing that there is nothing to do but wait, they keep telling each other not to lose heart. Then she mentions her 9 teachers, 7 men and 2 women, and how she gets along pretty well with all of them except for one, Mr. Keesing, her math teacher, who has always been annoyed with her since ages because she's been talkative in the class. So one day, despite several warnings, she manages to make him so angry that he assigns her an extra homework, and that was to write an essay on the topic Chatterbox. It bothered her a lot, but then she had to do it since he was a teacher. So she noted it down in a notebook and tucked it away in her bag and tried to keep quiet. At home, after finishing all her other work, she sat down to write the essay. And she decided that she had to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. So she wrote stating that talking is a student's trait and that she would try to keep it under control. But then, since she had inherited this trait from her mother, it was quite impossible for her to control it. The next day, Mr. Keesing had a good laugh reading her essay. But when she proceeded to talk her way out to the next lesson, he assigned her another essay. And this time it was supposed to be on the title An Incorrigible Chatterbox. After completing the lesson, she submitted the work to him the next day, and after which Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for about 2 whole lessons. However, sadly, during the third lesson, she was caught talking again, and as a punishment, he made her write another essay titled Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. This made the whole class laugh, and out of embarrassment, Anne had to laugh too. But deep down inside, Anne was in a big dilemma. After having had written 2 essays earlier, she was now running short of words. Fortunately for her, one of her good friend called San, who was really good at poetry writing, offered to help her write the essay from beginning to end, and that too in the form of a verse. This made Anne relieved and elated. Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on her with all these ridiculous subjects, thought Anne. And now it was time to ensure that the joke was in him. After finishing the poem, which was beautiful, since it was a story about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they quacked too much, she submitted the work to Mr. Keesing. Luckily for her, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, Anne was allowed to talk and hadn't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, Mr. Keesing's always been making jokes these days. So this was the story of Anne Frank. It has been extracted from The Diary of a Young Girl, with slight adaptation, of course. And I hope you've liked listening to the narration here. Thank you.